good afternoon, folks. This is the real Captain Kirk here. It's Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend. Hope you're having a great one here. A little bit chilly here today. Again, below freezing here right now outside our studios here. So again, happy Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend. We'll start here with a recap of meteorological winter since we're just about halfway through the 1 December period here through February. So again, looking at the front half of winter so far, we say it's about 1.9 colder than last year, coldest in 5 years, but still 10th warmest in 38 years, so above average. But again, it's been a wholesale change from December to January here. I'll talk about that in a minute. For the front half of winter, 17% wetter than last year, wettest in 3, 10th wettest in 38. So those are some good news trends. And again, exceptional rainfall in the west, even getting it into the plains where we need it for their drought-stricken areas. Snowfall is just a hair below last year, 1% less than last year, 12th least in 38 years. So while there's been epic snow in the west and parts of the Buffalo area, again, not a lot of snow here nationally. And we can look at this shrinking snowman here for the season to date now. This will go back to 1 September through 13 January. 32% more than last year, most in 3 years, but still 12% below average, 12th least in 38 years. And the way January's trending here, we'll probably continue these shrinking snowfall trends. Looking at the winter to date, and again, how our big retail customers would look at the weather year on year. So we see those bars are the change in the weather from that same period day last year, and the red line's the actual national temperature line, and the blue line's the min temperature line for the U.S. overall. We see the huge changes here for coldest December in 5 years, below average conditions, and then January, obviously the really warm conditions now, the warmest in 17 years is how it looks like it's going to shake out here for the whole January as a whole. February, the trends may moderate a bit. We have it still the warmest in 3 years, maybe a couple periods of colder, below normal temperatures, but we'll see about that. Our Power of 1 Degree technology would say that those sales were epic for seasonal categories, again, leading up to Christmas, which is 20, 30 degree colder temperatures nationally. Some of the Christmas period, the coldest in 127 years. So just some brutally cold weather drove all those seasonal sales. You probably got everything you needed, and you probably don't need much now here in January with the milder trends. If we look at a last week world summer here, so this is ending here tonight, 14 January 2023. U.S. about 4.7 warmer than last year, warmest in 17 years, third warmest in 38 years, so much above average temperatures here nationally. 35% wetter than last year, most in 3 years, about in the middle of the pack, 19th driest in 38 years, so just a hair below average. Snowfall way below average, 62% less snow than last year, number one least in 38 years, so much below average snowfall. Despite, again, all the heavy snow in the west, but where people live, not a ton of snow. Looking at the trends across Canada, again, they were 7.7 warmer than last year. Again, 6th warmest in 38 years. UK on the warm side, warmest in 25 years. Russia, the cold spot, 3rd coldest in 38 years. So the polar vortex is pretty much camped out there in central southwest Russia and Siberia, kind of where it belongs. Greenland, pretty cold. Cold down under. Australia continues their cold trends for their summer, coldest in 11 years. India, kind of coolest in 3. Brazil, coldest in 5. So the world overall was pretty much warm and wet was the theme. If we look at the flu and COVID trends, they too are plummeting. So we had a season that spiked more like 2009, a very early type A flu season, very, very early October, November. That's continuing to crash now. So we're actually now trending below last year's type A flu. So type A flu is just now peaking, as was COVID last year with a huge Omicron variant spike. So again, 2 whammies last year this time. Not so this year. COVID cases down a whopping 92%. No variants that are really emerging, obviously after the Omicron spike last year. Flu cases, again, down 12. So looks like we may be home free here for the balance of winter. Let's hope so, that the peak is over. This week here, again, week ending 21 January here in the U.S., we're about 9.7 warmer than last year. Warmest in 6, 4th warmest in 38 years. We see some cooler trends here. These have nothing to do in the west with the polar vortex, but just more to some Pacific cold air that's making it off of Siberia and coming across the Pacific. So it's moderated Pacific air, but again, colder than normal for the west and snowier out there. They continue their very heavy snowfall in the Sierras. We're just getting feet after feet after feet of snow. Despite what looks like a lot of rain and coverage here, it is pretty much a lot of coverage, but it's 8% drier than last year, 14th driest in 38 years, so below average nationally. Again, may change a bit here because we're just right on the hair of a little bit less than last year. Least snow in 6 years, so below average, but again, heavy in the Rocky Mountains, and some of that spilling out into the plains here late in the week, Midwest, maybe going from Colorado to Wisconsin. So see that here in a minute here. So this is actually the 6-day snowfall trends, takes us through the 19th. And again, we see, again, still below last year, 65% less than a year ago, 46% below average, 8th least in 38 years. So again, it's a lot, but it's just in these high elevation of the mountains, you can actually see the outlines of the mountains with the heavy snow. But again, not a lot where people live. So again, if we put this into the trend chart here perspective, again, to see the downward trend, again, least since about 2017. Looking at next week here, again, the last full week of January, 28 January here. Again, see some of that cold weather spilling into the plains. So we'll see if we can make it all the way into the north central U.S. here. But about 6 degrees warmer than last year. But again, tale of two halves, warmest in 3 years, fifth warmest in 38 years. So still remains mild, again, by January standards. Again, so it's not like it's 60s and 70s, but at least well above average for this time of year. Precip may be a little underdone. It does look like the parade of storms in the atmospheric river, as folks like to call it. We'll take a break here for California. So 45% wetter than last year, but still fourth driest in 38 years, well below average precip here. And again, we'll see some of that plains snowfall there in Nebraska, Kansas. Let's hope they definitely need it. That'll translate some soil moisture again for the parched areas of the central U.S. Polar vortex, again, is pretty much strong and symmetrical, and when that's the case, it stays camped out over Siberia and the North Pole. However, we see it stretching here a bit, and so a stretching polar vortex suggests could you see some cold air on the move, and again, that cold air on the move is probably headed more toward eastern Siberia and China, Asia, as opposed to the U.S. So again, when it wobbles and gets weak, we can certainly get some excitement for cold air, but right now that looks like it's, we look at this 2-week outlook here, you can see that's really big, huge warm trends in China are plummeting. Again, so that polar vortex is probably headed more toward eastern Siberia, parts of northeast China could be very cold. But again, maybe Greenland, but not so much here in the U.S. Again, the western influence is just modified Pacific polar air. So with that, folks, we hope you have a great week, and we will be back here again this time next week.